So what I thought I'd do today was just quickly go through some of the sustainability initiatives that the plastic pipe industry is going through, both from my members' perspective. So Piper's members are made up from resin suppliers through to pipe manufacturers all the way down the chain. And so this is really a focus around what we're doing around carbon and circular economy. So the first thing that I wanted to speak about was EPDs, which is a topic of conversation. So actually, EPDs isn't anything new to the plastic pipes industry here in Australia. And in around 2015 to 2016, Piper worked with our two larger tier companies, Iplex and Vinidex, and you can see their EPDs on the screen, to develop actually the world's first plastic pipes EPDs. And I was fortunate at the time to be a part of that in my role at Iplex. And then moving forward in the last couple of years as my role within Piper, I've continued to work with these two organisations to redo their EPDs, updated to the new EN standard, which is the plus A2. And basically, it's been a really interesting process going through from the initial start of doing the EPDs to where they are now. And we've had lots of learnings along the way. And we've had lots of questions as well. So what we're actually doing is putting together a research paper, which we're actually presenting at this year's Global Plastic Pipes Conference around our experience with developing these EPDs and sort of some of the areas where there needs to be more improvement around increasing that transparency, you know, to help everyone who uses them, and then also the manufacturers as well. So what we do see as our manufacturers, they use EPDs as to set their baseline of where they are, and then they can use that to then look at the areas that they need to improve, obviously to reach that net zero that we're all aiming to achieve. Some of the areas of influence that we can do is in our A1, A2 and A3, which is around the product design, manufacturing efficiencies. However, once it goes to the end user, we actually lose our influence to control the global warming potentials in those areas. So what we've actually done in the A5 installation through these EPDs is generally we would look at like a typical scenario, and that would look at pipe diameters, locations, and we'd put together a scenario. However, we know that typical isn't, it varies from site to site and project to project. So what we've actually done to try and make it a little bit more useful for the end users is we've actually come together as an industry. We've left the A1, A2, A3 to the individual pipe manufacturers because they're the things that they can control to a certain degree with, their renewable energies, the air efficiencies within their manufacturing plants. But once we get to the A5 installation module, that's out of their control. So what we've done in our EPDs is we've decided to take a more qualitative data. And you can see here what we've done on the screen is we've actually gone through and looked at all of the different areas in the A5 and looked at where the greatest contribution to the global warming potential is. So the largest three is around your diesel trench excavation, embedment material, and then the transport of the fill and waste. We've also taken a step further in these new EPDs, and we've actually then also looked at the embedment material and looked at the typical embedment materials that can be used to install plastic pipes, and then looked at the global warming potential per kilogram per metre square cubed. And as you can see there, if you use crushed rock, it's very, it has a lot higher than using a recycled aggregate or a recycled glass. And so we're hoping that adding this type of information into the EPDs will help the end users when making their decisions, not only from picking a product, but then also what they actually use through the installation process as well. As I said before, we're writing a paper at the moment, which we will be presenting and publishing. One of the things that we have realised is that we do need to, in our next phase, so like within the next 5 years, we really want to quantify this information in the A5 installation model. So I suppose the other part of the EPDs is looking at our carbon impact. And so if we focus on the life stages of plastic pipes, And if we particularly look at the A1, A2 and A3 of an EPD, this is our main area of impact or hotspots or areas of opportunity for us to reduce our emissions. Where our largest emissions come from is actually in the A1. So you can see in this diagram here, we've got A1, A2 and A3 are generally put all together. The A1 is our raw material supply. A2 is our transport of that, and A3 is our manufacturing. So the manufacturers can have control of their manufacturing, obviously being able to use renewable energies. The A1 is our most emission intensive phase, and we say that's about 70%. When it comes to manufacturing plastic pipes, it's actually a really relatively simple process. So the main inputs are plastic pellets or powder and electricity. And then the production equipment that we use is just heating is electrical. So the temp required to actually melt the plastic is relatively low. So therefore we already sort of start at a low carbon footprint and low emissions and low embodied energy. Sorry. Then an alternative. You can also see here that through the use and maintenance, installation and disposal is only very small carbon impact. But yeah, that A1 is really our focus area with our raw material suppliers. But in saying that, as we said, we've set our baseline with our EPDs, and now we're moving to looking at the great thing is there's no shortage of options to decarbonise in that A1 product stage. And PIPA's actually working, and our pipe producers are also working with our raw material suppliers. And so this little diagram here shows you that in the upstream, where the feedstocks, so we're already looking at bio and recycled feedstocks. And then within the actual plastic production plants of the pellets or the powders, there's the use of renewable power or low carbon hydrogen as well. To give you a bit of an idea, some of our raw material comes from Thailand, and what they actually have out there is actually a floating farm of solar panels, which is really exciting. And it's something that they actually don't showcase. So PIPA is working with them at the moment to be able to bring all of these things together to showcase what the industry is actually doing in decarbonising, especially in this A1 stage. And then when we talk about A3, so this is the manufacturing stage. So again, we know that there's further opportunities to decarbonise here with the use of renewable power, and a lot of the PIPA members who manufacture have already now gone and set their targets now that they know their baseline, and reporting mechanisms each year, which I'll talk about next, to show where the industry is going year on year in our decarbonisation. So the next thing I just wanted to touch base on was around the circular economy. So as we know, we've got this focus on moving from a linear to a circular economy. And one of the big things that PIPA's been focusing on and communicating is really about how plastic pipes actually already do fit within our circular economy framework. So basically, when we talk about circular economy, the first thing is around design and make. So plastic pipes are actually already designed with a service life of 100 plus years. So they're made, from a material that is already 100% recyclable. And again, as I spoke about our manufacturing process, we already have low emissions and then journey to get to our net zero. The great thing is too, around the packaging used is very minimal as well and can be recycled. When plastic pipes are in their use stage, in their 100-year plus service life, they actually need minimal to no maintenance. And majority of our plastic pipes that are in use now are still in their first life cycle. When we look at reuse and repair, so again, because there's minimal maintenance, but we already have really simple reuse and repair options available. So, if there is a pipe that needs, a section repaired, we can do that without having to, remove the whole pipeline. And then finally, the recover and recycle. So the industry is already active in take back schemes, and we're seeing momentum grow across all the different industries that use plastic pipes. But as I said, we're still in our first life cycle. But when they are time to be recovered, they can be recycled back into a new plastic pipe. And we can do this over and over again without losing the material properties. And there's been studies to show, particularly with PVC, I think the latest one showed about we can do it 8 times. So technically that's 800 years if we got that full life cycle out of that pipe. The other thing to warrant though too is many of the plastic pipes that are used in buried infrastructure, they're most likely never to come out of the ground, but once they finish their end of life, they'll become a host for a new pipe. So therefore you're not then having to disturb the environment because you've already got that hole in the ground, so to speak, and so you can just put another pipe through there, or there's reliners and all sorts of technology that's being developed or early stages now. I briefly spoke about this at our last meeting, but there are a number of recycling schemes that we do have going on from a PIPA that PIPA is involved with. So we do have the construction plastics recycling scheme. That's one's based in Queensland here, supported by the Queensland government. We just finished phase 2. This one looks at recycling PVC offcuts within the plumbing industry. And then the plumbing industry plastics recycling scheme is one that's based in WA. This looks at recycling both PVC and polyethylene. And this is also focused in the plumbing industry with the MPA skills over there. So they're like the apprenticeship-based training facilities that are based in WA. In saying that, though, we do have conversations going on at the moment within the mining industry, regional councils, and then my own members, they have specific setup schemes as well, where they will work with a client, and any offcuts or anything that is on a larger site, they will take those back and recycle. So we can do all the mechanical recycling in-house because that's just also how we monitor waste, and that's how we have minimal waste in our manufacturing process. Some of the things that we are continually working on as an industry in the industry at the moment is this one's quite exciting. We're actually developing a plastic pipes and fittings product stewardship scheme and looking to get this accredited by the federal government. This is a way how we can elevate from the work that we've done in our EPDs and then to those goals that the industry has set, that we can actually showcase year on year in a publication of what we're doing and how we're tracking along. And this then falls into the second point about continuing to work with our members to decarbonise. Another thing that we've been working on, again, which does look at EPDs and the information in them, is we've teamed up with Edge Environment, and we're working on 3 reports: an infrastructure, a drainage and built environment, which they're close to being published. And they look at how they do look at comparing different materials, but also more importantly, they also look at how to really understand an EPD and how you cannot just pick up 2 EPDs and think that they're like for like, especially now that we have some that are still in the A1, published under A1, and then the new ones that are published under A2. So just trying to make sure that people aren't using them incorrectly as well. And then, as I spoke before, we're seeing having more and more conversations about expanding recycling schemes that we already have, or going into new areas within the industries that use plastic pipes, to be able to set up other different types of schemes, so then we can continue to collect. And also too, this is really good because we're actually collecting data that we've been lacking as well. And that's it. Sorry, it was all very quick, but I thought I'd just give you a quick update on where we're at and those stages along the way. And I'm looking to bring that together in a little bit of a document for MECLA as well, but I thought it would be best to present first. So thank you. And if anyone has any questions, you can ask me now, or you can get in contact with me afterwards.